Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Thanks for coming. I'm Don Bishop. I'm the Associate Vice President for Undergraduate Enrollment. It's a new title at Notre Dame that I came with last year when I came back to the university. What it means is I oversee admissions, financial aid, student accounts, and also the pre-college summer programs. I'm going to be presenting today a little bit of an overview, and then Bob Mundy, our Director of Admission. Bob has been here 28 years, and I was actually here before Bob left and then returned, and he was still here. We can't get rid of him. And in fact, I promoted him to director when I came back. So Bob will go through admissions, and then I will finish the session with talking about financial aid. We are actively going to be in a search for a director of student financial aid and student financial services. And this time next year, that director will be with Bob and me, and she or he will be presenting as well. But welcome back to campus. And what I'd like to do is go through this fairly quickly so we leave time at the end for conversation. But also, if you have questions as you're seeing any of these slides, go ahead and throw up your hand. And we can certainly stop the presentation to answer a question that you think is germane to the presentation. But we'll try to get through this pretty quickly so that if you have very specific questions, we can get to those. In the admission side, in the enrollment side, this year our goal is to enroll 1,995 freshmen. And we have about 17,000 applications for admission. These are some of the areas of groups that have said, well, when you are reading the file, pay special attention to. And you can see there's lots of areas for us to pay special attention to. Some of them are viewed as more special than others. So Catholic is really important unless you're a really good Mormon linebacker. No. Alumni children are really important without any unless after that, right? Development interest, people with special talents, certain majors we may look at. Do we have enough students applying to one area to really fill the proper number of students needed for that academic group to really use their resources and for us to be graduating people in fields that we intend to? So the admission office is hit with a lot. And this is Dan Saraceno's old slide, if you know Dan. And these are tennis balls, obviously. And I told Dan that as soon as I can, I'm going to change this slide because I think it would be more accurate to make these dodgeballs. These issues are headed right at the head of the admissions office, head in my head, that everybody is passionate about some of these, but not all of these. And what we do in the undergraduate enrollment division is we care about all these factors because there are different people within the Notre Dame community and alumni that care about different things very passionately. So there are a lot of what I call linear interest, but we have to form a matrix and basically try to make everybody a little happy and make sure nobody's completely unhappy. That's hard to do in admissions. Well, this year we had 16,954 applicants. We have admitted 3,850, which is 170 fewer than last year because we did not get to take students off the wait list last year and we slightly over-enrolled. So we thought we'd be more careful and then we can take some students off wait lists, is what usually colleges, selective colleges do. I will note that the yield rate or the admit rate at 23%, just about 10 years ago, it was at 36%. So we are getting more applicants of higher quality, and we are enrolling enough of them that we don't have to admit more than 23% to expect getting the class. We have waitlisted 2,500 students, and about half of those will elect to stay on the wait list. In all probability this year, we will take, if we get to take any off the wait list, we probably won't take more than 20 to 60 off the wait list. So if you have friends back home or people who have asked you, I'm on the wait list, tell them that we hope to take students off the wait list. We did admit fewer this year with the hope of doing it, but it is not going to be a large number, and it's very competitive off the wait list as well as to get in. 8% of our applicant pool were alumni children, and 24% of our class, by design, will be alumni children. So it's a protected class of applicants. So alumni children do get higher access. The admit rate for alumni children who apply is about half. Now, the half of the alumni who don't get in think it should be 100%. Yeah, I'll actually cover that in a little bit. So we admit about half the alumni children who apply, and they're very good students. And I'll go through that in a bit and give you some more stats on them. We also admit about 20% of the non-alumni children. So about half of the alumni children get in, and 20% of the non-alumni children get in. If I could have a show of hands, how many of you, when you were admitted to Notre Dame, did not have a father or mother who was a Notre Dame graduate? Nearly all of us. Bob, raise your hand. We have to make sure that we balance our loyalty to the Notre Dame alumni with our sense of fairness, our sense of ethics that we were taught here, and access that other students who want to start their family tradition at Notre Dame deserve to. After all, we are the university is the #1 Catholic university in the world, and we have a responsibility to all Catholics to give access here in as fair a way as possible, but on the other side, to also reward the loyalty of alumni. And that gets to answering the question, what's the profile of the alumni? Profile of the alumni, SAT score, our median this year was 1470 for the admits on the SAT, 33 for the ACT. The alumni median was maybe 10 points off of that. So it's not that far off, but it's not because we don't give special interests. It's sort of bimodal. We have a disproportionate number of our very top kids are alumni kids. So they could go to Harvard or Stanford or Princeton, but they've decided that they're smarter than that, and they're coming to Notre Dame. And mom and dad have sort of influenced that over the years. So we get more than our share of high ability kids who are alumni. I also think Notre Dame alumni produce smarter children than Harvard alumni do. And we also produce more children than Harvard alumni do. To give you an idea, about 24% of our class will be alumni children. If you look at the Ivy League, the top 8, well, the Ivy League have 8 schools in them, they average around 12 to 13%. Stanford, about 11%, Duke, about 14%, Boston College, not as selective as these schools, but pretty close, and they're at 14%. We're at 24%. So the average is around 12% for everybody else, and we're double that. So when your alumni tell you Notre Dame doesn't care about us because we know of a good kid who was an alumni kid that didn't get in, so see, they don't care, we do care. If we cared more, we would be more unfair than what's fair. And that's just the bottom line. Half the alumni children get in, and while their profile isn't that far off, it is a little off. And boy, there are about 250 enrolled freshmen each year that if they weren't alumni children, we would have preferred somebody else. But because of their alumni status, that got them in. Now, multiply 250 times 4 years. We have 1,000 students walking on this campus today that because of our commitment to our alumni are walking on this campus. And there are 1,000 kids who beat them out who were not given that spot. We thought that was fair. To do more would be unfair. And we get challenged all the time in the national press. We are the first school listed for being unfair and biased. And that's not usually something Notre Dame's comfortable with. But we'll do it for our alumni because our alumni are loyal to us, we're loyal to them. You just have to balance it with fairness. And remember how many of us raised our hands. Now, the admitted student profile, the median student was in the top 1 or 2% of their high school class. 42% last year were in the top 1% of their class. Now, some high schools have a higher concentration of talent. We do look at the quality of the high school. So one school, their top 10% might be equal to the top 1% at another school. We do look at the curriculum students take and also the competition at the school. The SAT score median, 1410 to, or the range for the middle 50%, 1410 to 1510. That means that a quarter of the class admitted had above 1510, and a quarter of the class admitted had below 1410. Now remember, there's a lot of special interest at Notre Dame. So some of those middle linebackers are not at 1470 on the SATs. Hopefully they're under 4.7 on the 40-yard. The middle 50% for the ACT is 32 to 34. I also like to brag about the national and international nature of Notre Dame. Notre Dame, when we went here, has always been a great national university. Almost every other school is more centrally regional, and Notre Dame's not. About a third of our students admitted are from the East and the Southeast, about a third from the Midwest, about a third from the West, Southwest, and other countries. This is the most national university in the United States. Our students collectively traveled 1.8 million miles as freshmen to start their freshman year last year. We had about 2,000 freshmen. Average distance was 900 miles. And we do allow students from Chicago to come. Just so you know, I've heard rumors that we don't. And so that's even with Chicago being a pretty high number of freshmen. Our average is still 900 miles. We did have 5,000 applicants in our pool of 17,000 this year who were in the top 1% in the nation in academic performance. And only half of those gained admission and half did not, just because of the competition in the pool and our reservation of spots for a lot of other attributes. And I'll talk a little bit more that numbers are only part of how we make decisions. Notre Dame's competitive position, we're probably among the top 12 or 14 colleges in America for selectivity right now. If you look at the academic profile of our class and compare it on test scores, on class high school rank, and all that. Actually, you could argue we're in the top 10. There are about 5 schools that are clustered all together. And I always joke with families, you know, Notre Dame's in the top 10, but there are about 14 schools in the top 10. You know, the Big Ten has 12 teams, the Big 12 has 10 teams. Colleges aren't good at math. But our overlap with the nation's top 10 schools has risen over the last 5 to 10 years. So we have more kids who we weren't on their list and now we are, increasingly. And those are Catholic kids, by the way, for the most part. So we're not losing our Catholic percentage in this. But some of the top Catholic kids used to feel Notre Dame was not quite up to the level of the faculty and the research of the other schools. As Notre Dame has enhanced its research, we are now getting a better shot at that some of the top Catholic kids that didn't used to consider. Now, a lot of the top Catholic kids have always considered Notre Dame, but we're just getting a larger share of that group. We've also improved financial aid over the last 10 years, and all of the colleges are competing to some degree with some merit awards now. We've not gone big into merit, but we are trying some things on a small scale. We have a Hesburgh-Usco scholarship program. There's 25 freshmen that receive a $25,000 per year merit award. Many of them are actually needy students who also get need-based aid on top of that. But some of them are not needy, and they do get that. We're finding that Duke, Cornell, or Duke, a limited amount at Stanford, some other colleges in the top 10 do it. A lot of the schools in the next 15 do it. Emory, Vanderbilt have been very aggressive on this. We are not going to start shifting the majority of our money into merit, but we are going to try some and see how much of an impact. What I can tell you is the Hesburgh-Usco scholarships last year, that group, the year before we gave those, that cohort yielded at a certain rate. Once they got the award, they yielded at a 75% higher rate. So their yield rate might have been around 49, 50%, and now they're closer to 80% or something like that. So it did matter. It does factor in. But we are not going to walk away from need-based aid to fund merit. We're going to have to get individuals to step forward and fund money specifically to merit so it doesn't take away from need-based aid. Notre Dame remains a first-choice university. We are more deliberate and holistic in our selection process. So we look at a lot of factors, not just the numbers we've been shooting at you in the first 10 minutes of this presentation. In fact, as the numbers get higher, we use them less because all these kids have high numbers, so what does it matter whether you're ranked first or fifth in a class of 300? You're a top student. What does it matter if you have 1420 on the SATs or 1470? Those are both in the top 2% of the nation. So the other activities start weighing in more as long as you have that baseline of academic excellence. The key messages that we are saying to families as we're recruiting that we think distinguishes Notre Dame, and I'm going to go rapid fire through these, but we're a Catholic university with a core belief in morals, ethics, service to others. We want to develop your spirit and your mind, not just your mind. And that appeals to the kids that pick Notre Dame and want to pick Notre Dame if we pick them. We focus on the full development, and in the end, we think that we're not just trying to make them smarter, we're going to make them happier, more productive people for society. Achieving wisdom, fulfillment, intellectual development, all those are important at Notre Dame. Increasing your intellect and your creativity, but a passion for leadership and service. The faculty dedication to teaching and involving students, increasingly involving them in research, is important. And this research creates an excitement and prominence for our top students. And that's one of the reasons why more students who used to, Catholic students who did not apply here, have started to apply here. And they are putting us on the list. It's a tough list to beat when you're going up against Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford. And to be honest, most of our focus in recruitment is not how do we beat those guys. It's really the top 20 colleges and the top state schools in your homes that put these kids into honors programs and offer them full ride scholarships. Our competition is not just the top 5. In fact, the majority of our competition is that group right below the top 5. And we know that. We're not delusional where we think, oh, we can do that right now. We try the best we can because we still think saving students from Harvard is a good thing to do. But we don't always succeed. And then the last point is our sense of community is extremely important. These talking points resonate with the kids we're recruiting. And these, when we see kids that care about these things, it resonates with us when we're admitting them. I'm going to skip this slide and go just the future growth. We want to involve alumni more in recruitment. We want to identify more students at an earlier age, 8th grade through 10th grade. And we're going to ask our alumni to systematically with us identify the top kids in their home areas, primarily through some of our Catholic relationships, to identify kids so that we can recruit them earlier and engage them in a conversation. Our goal in the next 3 years is within 3 years, we want to be able to answer this question much better than we can now. Have we found and engaged all the top Catholic students in your home area in a conversation about why Notre Dame might be the right choice? How far along are we on that now? How can we get to a deeper, better conversation with those kids? And then reaffirm it with a relationship that doesn't just go with meeting them once, but trying to really reach out and get them involved and excited about Notre Dame and everything that can happen with them here. That includes one-on-one information sessions, meetings with students that we're going to ask our alumni to get more involved in, receptions, and also possibly even mentor relationships. This is particularly important with our summer programs. Can we get kids who don't traditionally look at a Notre Dame? They're first generation, they're low income, something that keeps them from naturally identifying with the top schools, but they have the talent to be at these schools. Can we reach out and get them here for the summer, for 1 or 2 summers, to get them more comfortable with Notre Dame? And then we need to develop more narratives and information on our alumni success. What I currently say to students is that in the last 5 years, our alumni gave the university they gave us $2 billion in the last 5 years. And if you've been paying attention to the economy hasn't been great. So that $2 billion is very impressive when people hear it. And then I mentioned to the students and their parents, I said, you know, our alumni say they wouldn't get in today. A lot of us say that. We think the kids getting in today are smarter than we were. I'm not so sure of that. They look better. I'm not sure they are better. But I tell the group, I said, remember, these alumni who just gave $2 billion think you're better. So imagine how much money you're going to be giving us in 15 to 20 years if the admission office picks the right kids. And then just finishing up on the enrollment side. Okay. You guys are fast readers. So, developing more information on our faculty and the ability to do research at Notre Dame is important. We don't do enough of that. And we're going to continue to accentuate our Catholic identity. There's no reason to back off of that. It is it is our core strength. And then our sense of community and family. And yeah, we need to start beating Michigan and definitely beating USC again. And then Bob, you're up.
Are we okay? This isn't working. It is working. It's not. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Should I leave it on? Great. Okay. Well, my name's Bob Mundy, and I'm the Director of Admissions. I've been here, as Don said, for 28 years. I'm in my 29th. Don's, there's no excuse for it. He hired me in 1983. He then left. Not because he hired me, he left because he had some other career opportunities.
No, actually it was, but yeah.
Then when he came back, he hired me again, so it's all his fault if he's not happy with things. But I come from a small town in eastern Pennsylvania called Tamaqua, and people will say, well, what's it like to be Director of Admissions? My family will say, something with a bit of surprise in their voice, how did you get to be Director of Admissions, and what's it like to be Director of Admissions? Single most overwhelming characteristic is that it's humbling. It's incredibly humbling to see the stories and to read the stories of these 17,000 kids who all seem to have a passionate desire to come to this special place. So it's an incredible honor to do that, but again, overwhelmingly, it's humbling. And I'll share with you, Don gets to do a lot of the numbers, I get to do the stories. And I'll share with you one example from the same individual on how I am humbled by this. In one of our supplement questions, we say, why are you interested in the University of Notre Dame? And this young lady wrote, when I was 8 years old, my family and I arrived at Notre Dame on a blustery Easter Monday to enroll my brother as a student. We took the official campus tour. I walked in awe as we saw the many buildings, the grotto, the Hesburgh Library, and the football field. I learned of the Notre Dame family. Later, after falling asleep in Bob Mundy's office, remember the humbling thing?
That happens to me all the time, too. So.
We walked into the hallway. Mr. Mundy pointed out the Kermit the Frog hidden in the tapestry mural on the wall. I was so impressed that this important person would take the time out to show me something and make me smile. His personal actions spoke about the values and attitudes inherent at Notre Dame and showed me it was much more than just an academic institution. And then she concludes by saying, I only hope that somehow you understand Notre Dame is my only real choice. And I just signed her confirmation letter a couple of days ago. So that's very personally humbling. On a much greater scale, and to give you a sense of what we see among these students. So if you ever wonder, because we'll sometimes get questions from alumni, are you admitting the right kids? You have these 17,000, so there are a lot of right kids in there. Are you admitting the right Notre Dame kids, the right Notre Dame people? Very same young lady. She writes about doing some volunteer work at a children's medical center, and she concludes by saying, there is no greater feeling of satisfaction than knowing that my small acts could bring a smile, a laugh, a feeling of camaraderie to a child who otherwise knows pain, loneliness, and despair. I want to study at a university that emphasizes human solidarity, compassion, and dignity. A place where mission is to make the world a better place through its outreach. Notre Dame is that place. She gets it. She's going to be with us this fall, and there will be a lot of students like her. So it's a terrific, again, it's terrifically humbling to read these sorts of things and to think these kids who have terrific academic, wonderful academic backgrounds understand the essence of this place and what makes it different. To give you a little bit of an idea of how we do what we do, from 17,000 down to 4,000 or 3,850 where we are right now, we read every application. There's no pre-screening that we do. Every application, once it is complete, goes to our area counselor. Many of you have met some of our staff. Currently, they are all Notre Dame graduates who care deeply and passionately about this place. It's a great honor. I had dinner with one of them the other night with some of our Alumni Schools Committee reps, and I was so proud sitting next to Alyssa Moya, who is just out of this place 2 years, and so proud to see her interact with these alums because of how well she can represent this place. Typically, applications we read more applications than not get read twice or more times, and then eventually probably 3,000 to 5,000 of them will end up into a committee process that will get another look as they're sort of competing for the last few hundred spots. Alumni children will get a second and or third review, and keep in mind, as Don suggested, we admit about half of the alumni children. If we pull them out of the statistics, you'll see that that is well past double the admission rate for the remaining group, for the remaining cohort of applicants. We try to get at Notre Dame specific questions. I just read two responses to Notre Dame supplement questions. One, why do you want to be at Notre Dame? The other one was, tell us how you're able to affect others, to help others. And we do that with some pretty specific short answer questions on the Notre Dame interest to hopefully capture their real sense of how well they understand this place and the fit. And as Don noted, one really neat thing, and this was a great thing for the staff to realize probably last year, that we've now reached a point where the difference among numbers is not so great, so that we can look at other things as well. And that makes the staff feel great because they are Notre Dame grads, and I hope it makes you feel pretty comfortable with what we do. Again, just to give you an idea that we're not driven entirely by numbers. Think about this. Of students who are ranked valedictorians in their class, we admitted less than half of them. Of students who are ranked in the top 2 through 5, just over a third of them. So we're not driven by the fact of, oh, here's a valedictorian. I guess that settles that. Let's move on here and admit this student. So again, this is not to show you how difficult it is. It's to show you what else we're doing. And then, again, same thing here. Students in various testing bands. I looked the other day. I think we have about half a dozen kids in this year's pool with perfect test scores who have not been admitted. So again, we're not going to sort of roll over on any of these things. And you see some of these high admit rates because you often get the very correspondent, the student who's in this high testing range also happens to be in the top 2 to 3% of his or her graduating class, also plays on the volleyball team, is a student body vice president, and on Saturday mornings works at Habitat for Humanity, or you fill in the blanks.
By the way, at this presentation last year, a member of the audience tweeted this to the world, all the data. If you would understand that this is reasonably confidential information that we're sharing with you, if the university wishes to publish this, please let the university publish it. So, we're a little surprised by that, but, in this world, people don't necessarily know unless you tell them it's confidential. So just assume it's confidential. Honestly, I think this is the type of material we should publish so people kind of know what they're up against. We're trying to be as transparent as possible, but the difficulty with sharing numbers then is some people assume that's all we do is use numbers.
And then again, the result of our review of those applications, we think come August, the class will have some of these characteristics. We think that alumni children will comprise just around a quarter of the class. Obviously, this is building right now. We were just talking about our response rates at this point. We're expecting to be right around 24%, which I think is consistent with last year.
Actually, it was a little lower last year. We're going to be up a little this year.
Okay. we're hoping that we'll become a little bit more diverse, both in terms of U.S. students of color and in international students. We have some predictive modeling that suggests that this will be true, and we also anticipate, as expected, that we will have a very strong concentration of students who have identified themselves as Catholic. So again, a lot of other characteristics we could put out there for you, but these are some of the key, I think, some of the key items. So again, it's again my pleasure to get a chance to share some of these things with you. But more importantly than the statistics or what the class is going to look like, understand we care very, very intensely about the students who will be admitted here. And if you could sit in some of those committee meetings, there are great, you know, I can't imagine a better staff than the one that I have the pleasure of working with. The advantage of these incredibly hard workers who love this place more than I can describe for you is it's humbling. But there are times when I think if they didn't love this place so much, this job from an internal point of view would be easier, because they are sometimes just absolutely convinced that this is the right kid, and it's great. It's great to see that. So thanks for spending a little bit of time with us. I think we're happy to. Don's got part 3 here on some financial aid, and then we'll entertain some questions.
So financial aid is really an investment. It's not just an assistance program to allow families to pick us. And we are in competition with other schools. It really is an investment by the university. And part of that investment, as I'll talk about, is to give access to any student who can be admitted. To give you an idea of the cost, and I put 3 kids through college. My oldest went here, and at a meeting with some alumni yesterday, there was a 2003 alum who said, well, I don't quite remember how much it cost, and I gave him the exact dollar amount because my daughter graduated that year, and I remember when I have to write big checks, just what those numbers are. We paid $37,500 for tuition fees, room and board in the 2002-2003 academic year. So costs continue to go up, but what you will also note is that half of the class was on financial aid, close to $2,700. A third of our freshman recipients came from families of $150,000 and above. And in fact, 73% of the families between $150,000 and $200,000 who applied were identified as having need and received about $16,000 to $17,000 of Notre Dame scholarship. So when you're talking to some families, aid is actually available even if your earnings are quite good because the price is so high. To give you an idea of our financial aid investment, in 1999, it was the first year that Notre Dame trustees made the commitment to meeting full need of students. That was the first year that kids who really wanted to be here could come regardless of their finances. Prior to that, Notre Dame was really shockingly bad at financial aid, and we were not as diverse nor as selective. One of the reasons why we've gotten more selective, more apps is because there's more hope now. That's a hope that we should have always have had, and as the endowment went up, we've been able to provide it. So that gives you an idea of the growth. The blue is the increase in cost. The green is the increase in aid. So we've been very aggressively improving the support to families. This gives you an idea of the total amount. Next year, we will probably spend close to $111 million on aid for our undergraduates. We'll have about 8,400 undergraduates, and about half of them, about 4,200, will be on aid. It's impressive. Now, our endowment and our gifts funds about 60% of that, and then our operating budget has to contribute 40%. The long-term stability and strength of the institution will be achieved if we can get endowments up to fund about 80% of what we give out. With that said, at around 59% of all the aid we give out funded by endowment, that puts us in the top 8 colleges in America for endowment support as opposed to just taking it all out of our pocket, out of operating. So it is quite good, but we intend to be in the top 3 or 4 schools. This is the average debt of our graduating seniors to the percentage of our total cost of tuition, fees, room, and board. You can see a very nice trend. We want to drive that down to about 10%. We think that would be a healthy accomplishment. So we're trying to lower loans and give more scholarship money whenever possible. As I noted, 1/3 had incomes over $150,000. They received an average award over $16,000. 50% of our kids are on Notre Dame scholarships, and that average award about $27,000. Also, 13% of our class come from families under $60,000, and we gave them enough aid that they could come. Now, we think that percentage is too low. We would like to get that to 20%. And that would be very equal to the very, very top schools in the country. Ironically, Notre Dame's a little less accessible. We're less elitist, some might say, but we're less accessible to the bottom. That's not a good circumstance for us. We are need blind in admissions, and we intend to stay. We want to increasingly be more affordable and competitive with aid. And the merit, the Ivies now called need-based, well, their merit is really called need-based aid. Some of the colleges have stopped using the federal methodology, and they say 10% of your income is what your capability is. So if you're a family earning $180,000, they'll say, well, you can pay $18,000 and you need $37,000 in aid. And then they give you that. That methodology at most schools, $180,000, you might be told, well, you can pay $32,000, not $18,000. So all of a sudden we become $14,000 more expensive unless we give merit. So is it merit aid? Is it need analysis? It's all semantics. It's a competitive world out there, and we really have to study this and decide how are we going to compete. At the same point, we don't want to give away the store and throw so much money into financial aid, there's not enough money to provide the support for faculty, staff here. Some of these schools are dangerously close to having a facade of excellence where they give the money to the kids, but they've had to cut like crazy to give the money to the kids. And they are weaker academic and social environments on those campuses for what they're doing. Notre Dame's not going to do that. There's no reason to risk our quality. So our levels of self-help continue to go down as much as we can. They range from about 0 self-help, 0 loan work, to about 10,500. About 2,500 in work and about 7,000, or 7,500 in loan and about 2,000 work. Outside scholarships, when kids get them, it reduces their loan and their work. It doesn't reduce their Notre Dame scholarship. So we want students to be rewarded, unless those outside awards are so large that the combination of the two is the kid is making a profit. No, that's not right. We have a lot of very sharp kids. they have figured this out. So alumni club scholarships, you guys are great. I believe we give out over $3 million a year in alumni club scholarships. A lot of kids rely on them. We're kind of shocked that not enough of them apply for them. If you've got club scholarships and kids aren't applying, make sure they know about them. Are we marketing it well enough? And maybe we need to do a better job of that within our own offices. And then international students, increasingly we're trying to provide some funding to get more international. This is Joe Russo's slide, and I shouldn't let this session go without telling you, Joe Russo retired at the end of March as part of the early retirement. Yeah, he's a financial guy. He saw the deal, and he knew this was a deal you should take. I actually started in admissions 1 year before Joe Russo was here. He was here for 38 years, or 34 years, I think. He had a remarkable career, and we will make sure he's not allowed to do anything related to his work for 90 days, but I think we'll get him back at times to do some emeritus things. But this is his slide, and he will remind all of us that the family is the primary responsibility to pay for college, not us, but based upon what they have. And then the student doing their own, loans and work, including summer jobs, getting outside scholarships, and then the university school. The only thing I disagree with Joe's pyramid is that university school percentage, I think, is larger than what it visually looks like on there. So we might change that a bit. And, that's the end of our presentation. Questions? Yes, it is. So the question is, right. So let's say we give an award, a family has $20,000 need, and we give award of $12,000 in scholarship, $2,000 work, and $6,000 loan. And the club has a $2,000 scholarship. We'll take down $2,000 in the loan. So they're better off by $2,000. Now, if they can still get that loan in federal definition without losing it, they have the option of keeping that loan. But they are better off by your scholarship.
When the scholarship went in, though, would that count on against the FAFSA if that 3 months ago?
Right. Yeah, the federal methodology. So that loan, which has been subsidized because it was part of meeting need, now is unsubsidized. You still get the loan, it just is a little less favorable rate and you have to pay it back a little earlier. But you still can get that most of the time. You really are better off by $2,000. That's the way you want to think about it. They're better off by the amount that you give them. Go here and then there.
Question. First off, I've been club president for 10 years and now I'm the alumni staff. So I have to say, I don't envy the job you guys have to do. You do a wonderful job.
Thanks.
That being said, I have a question with respect to early admission.
Mm-hmm.
Having gone through ASC for that number of years, in the early admission listing that I get at our club, I'll see names of people that I've never heard of, right? They haven't shown up to like ND information nights or any of those, but they've applied and they've gotten accepted. And then, because we don't make you commit off of early admission, you watch them sit, and get the sense it's, I'm glad I got in there, but I'm waiting to see if I get a better offer on the other line, and therefore you get the sense that Notre Dame isn't really their first choice, but a good second choice. My question is, does it still make sense not to have them have to commit if they get accepted on early admission?
Yeah, if you look at the top 10 or 12 universities, there's a real split. Some have early action like we do, some have early decision. Part of it is a philosophical perception of, is it more a convenience for us or for them? Notre Dame has always sided on being in favor of convenience for the student, treating the student and the family well. Early decision does put extra pressure on the family. I worked at Cornell University, wonderful university, great experience. My boss, by the way, was a Notre Dame grad, so we had 2 domers running one of the colleges there. But we were told by the central university manager, the reason why we have early decision is to force more kids not to apply to Penn. It's poker, and they've got to double down now on Penn or us. We don't want to compete with Penn fairly. We're going to put the pressure on the kid to do it early. And we're going to suggest to them, if you apply early, it gives you a little bit extra edge to even apply a little bit more pressure. I don't like that. I don't think that's the way to treat 18-year-olds who are going through this process. My own view is that let's be confident and let's be a little humble. Let's not worry from an ego standpoint. Our ego is stronger than theirs. And now I don't mean to demonize early decision. There are some real efficiencies to it that I like. It lowers your admit rate, increases your yield rate, makes you look better. You don't hear the stories of, yeah, I got in, but I don't know if I'm going. Right? I still think, and we will look at this every year, so that is under evaluation, but right now our instincts and our philosophy is really aligned with early action. And I'll tell you, the high school counselors and the families say, you're one of the good guys. Notre Dame always wants to position itself as one of the good guys. Question here, and then we'll go.
Question regarding the club scholarships and then the financial packages you have. Are there
You know,
administrated by Notre Dame or whether it's out of your general fund.
right. We try to work with the clubs so there's consistency. Our preference is that you're giving the needy kids first, and that the need assessment is done by us, and we provide that information to you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. It says the criteria are the same.
Yeah.
So really, there's no, even though the scholarship may be at the local club level, there's no variance at that club level to try to encourage students or use that money.
Right.
That would be beyond.
Right. Now you get to pick who gets it, but the methodology of how much they get and there is not affected.
It's on the overall
Yeah.
criteria. Second question, really, looking at your slide, significant changes obviously since 2009. We heard earlier this afternoon about addressing that 150 to 250,000
Right.
income. Has Notre Dame done that, or is that what that jump is in 2009?
Yeah.
Or is that TBD?
Yeah, I think we are addressing more of those issues just to stay competitive. I mean, if the other schools weren't doing as much aggressively in that group, it wouldn't cost us as much. But we're willing to analyze these things and pay attention. So I think, and the merit awards have also been strategized to attack that group more than not, or really approach that group more effectively. So I think there's going to be a lot of activity among all the top colleges in that $150,000 to $300,000 range. Our yield rate, the percentage of admits who enroll, is slightly lower in the $150,000 to $300,000 range than we would have expected over the last couple of years. So there's more work to do there. But we are not going to take money away from the lowest income to fund it. We're going to have to fund it by gifts, added gifts. So that's kind of the discipline. Because remember what I said, we're only at 13% of our kids under 60,000, and most of the top schools are at 20%, so we're also behind there. So we're behind in two areas. In part, it's because we're more disciplined in how we spend our money. Remember, a lot of those schools are spending maybe 70, 80% of what they're giving out is out of their operating. We're keeping it at about 40% of our operating because we want to keep the quality of the actual services and faculty here strong. So it's a balancing act, it's a values act. But I think long term, you're going to see a lot of activity by the development university relations team to raise more money for scholarships. And some of them will be merit-based. And remember what merit is. It's semantics. That 150 to 250 or 300,000, are they needy or not? We would suggest to you increasingly they are needy. So, then I'll go.
Of the 17,000 that we apply,
Mm-hmm.
how many percentage or how are we going to describe it? Were easy to remove?
You know, it's amazing. When you say easy, they just weren't viewed as competitive. All right, I'd say 1,000. Oh, the question was, out of the 17,000, how many of them just were pretty obvious denies? They just weren't up to the competition, and we wouldn't feel that they would succeed here. One analogy I use, kids keep forgetting they have to go to school here, to class. They say, I want to be part of the community. I want to go to the masses. I want to do the volunteer work. I want to go to the football games if you guys start winning. They want all that, but really they've got to remember that they got to be in class. And I drive LA freeways more than I like. LA freeways, think of a student that bottom 1,000 applicants, their car goes about 45 miles, 50 miles an hour. And the speed limit at Notre Dame is 75 miles an hour. Think how dangerous those people are to the traffic patterns. They're going to slow down the class, the faculty member. Nobody wants to teach a class where you've got a group of kids who can't keep up or won't keep up. And at the same point, the kids that are the Maseratis, now, they want to go faster than the course is going. So the faculty member has to find things to accentuate and meet with them afterwards to keep them going. So you really are irresponsible in our job and the university if you don't keep kids pretty clustered together. What's funny is the test scores and the grades, what really matters for success is how hard they work and how focused they are and how much they love what they're doing. So there's no SAT score for some of this stuff. And that's why we read the essays, we read the recommendations. Does this kid have the attitude of work ethic? Not just that they're smart, but are they going to work? And when they hit a wall, because they're all the top kids at their schools, which ones are resilient that when they hit the wall and get knocked down, they'll get up or ask for somebody to help them get up? That's what we're thinking about. So about 1,000 kids we cut right off, and they're fairly obvious. I would say that about 1/3 of my screaming parents are from families in that group who just don't get it. I had a family, the student had a C average and said, that's good enough. Yeah.
Every year, obviously, you get a lot of people on the wait list.
Yeah.
And they always ask, what can they do? I know you mentioned these numbers are confidential.
Yeah.
What should we tell families
Bob.
that are on the wait list?
I think the first thing you tell them is, unfortunately, they are going to have to sit tight until after May 1st. If you wonder how these things progress, so here we are, and this goes to your question, we're 10 days out from our confirmation date. We don't have half the class.
They all wait till the last minute.
And we're running ahead of last year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how they behave. We get over 1,000 applications on December 31st.
The deadline.
Just a due date for them. That's all. And that's terrific. That's why I love 17-year-olds. I really love them. I had one of my own. I rethought it a little bit, but what they can do is, number one, keep us. Well, first of all, technically, we send them a little card saying, yes, I'm still interested, or no thanks. They should immediately return that card so that we know. Because as Don said, half of these students will either not respond or say no thank you. So the first thing we're going to do if we have spots available is we're going to look how many students have said they're interested, how many students have actively engaged us and kept us abreast of what's going on in their lives. Well, since I applied, I've also been named the lead in the spring play, and I'm going to be, I've won this award from my high school.
Yeah. Our view on the wait list is we shouldn't have to chase them.
Right.
So when they front load the message saying, I'm updating my file and I want you to know, if you pick me, I'm coming, it's good for them to do that.
Right.
There's no reason to go pick a passive kid that, I'll think about it. No, we have so many kids that are chomping at the bit. The nice thing about waitlist is you get to reward that even more than you do it in the regular process. And we try to reward it in the regular process to a point, but remember how over 10,000 of the kids can convince you and me that they desperately want to be at Notre Dame. So you don't get to use that as the sole or main criteria. So waitlist, that sense of I'll come and here's an update is a good thing to do.
Yeah. Keep us informed of.
They do not need to physically come and meet with us, though. Right. No, there's a lot that feel, can I fly out and see you? And some just do, unannounced. Some dads do that, too. No, them. It's them. Yeah, I don't want any more people coming at us. We got plenty of that already. We don't need that. We get it. We want to hear from them. So there is a question here and then a question there. Okay. Okay, the question is, what's the criteria for early admission? I'll make a quick comment, and then if it's not enough, comment. Early admission is not designed for us to absolutely pick the last possible kid that would get in. We try to pick as many of them as we can. If we know they're going to get in the regular process, we might as well let them know now. But each year, probably about 150 kids to 100 kids who we defer. They don't get in early, but they're deferred. They're told, you're going to be read again. About 100 to 150 get in regular. We don't want to be in the position of having admitted too many early, and then when better kids apply, if let's say we have a surge on December 31st, instead of 1,000 apply, 1,500 apply. And then all of a sudden, there are 200 kids that we admitted early that we shouldn't have. They're admitted. So then you're unfair, and you're unfair to Notre Dame. We didn't get the best class we could have. So early action is a convenience for the student that if we're sure we're going to admit you, you're in. If we're not quite sure, we're going to defer you, and about 100 or so of those kids will get in. And if you get deferred, a lot of students get downcast over that. And out of 1,000 defers, about 100 to 150 get in. But in the regular action pool, about the same percentage get in as apply, so you don't have less chance if you're deferred. You just have to kind of take the disappointment of being deferred and wait. But it really isn't easier to get in as early action. It's a little harder to get in early action, but some of those kids that don't get in, if it's fair to admit them in regular, they get in. Right. We had around 5,500 early action apps. Yep. We deferred a little bit over 1,000. We admitted a little bit over 2,000, and we denied a little bit over 2,000. It's better to let them go and move on. If it's not going to happen, why keep them on the string? There was a question here and then a question there.
When you're doing the financial review for families that have more than one child in college,
yeah.
does that go into your factory for needs?
Right. The question is, when there are multiple kids at college, we ask the parents to love the Notre Dame child more, right? No, we split it, and we do look at the cost of the other institutions. So let's say it's Princeton. Oh yeah. So if the less talented child is going to Princeton, and the child is here, the costs are about the same, so we expect that to split. If they're going to a state school, we look at that as intelligently as we can.
And then just a follow-up on that. If you were admitted, but the financial package was not accounted for during the admission time, that would family or admitted students from all universities that left the country that can't afford it?
Well, we get a lot of calls from families saying they can't afford it, and we disagree with their view. And we've heard things like, well, I can't afford it because we bought a new home last year. I can't afford it because our second home in Maui is not renting out as well. I can't afford it because our oldest daughter is getting married and our budget's $50,000 for the wedding. So sometimes people want us to pay for weddings and vacations. Other times they're very sincere and they say, I can't afford it because I'm an RV salesman. I work on commission, and when the gasoline prices, I'm not going to be earning my bonus next year. That's fair. So we also have some very fair problems that get fixed. Or my home equity crashed. I was borrowing off of it and I have all this debt and I don't have the cash flow, so I'm selling off my stocks and I'm paying capital gains on my stocks to pay off they're getting screwed multiple ways. And so then we're going to look at that. We're going to be fair.
And again, the story to go behind that, we got an email not that long ago through our financial aid folks. Family that obviously struggled to keep their son here. And Dad made great reference. He said, it was like Disney World. Before we went, we couldn't imagine why it cost so much. And when we were done, we believe we got every penny's worth.
Yeah.
And that's the value that Notre Dame.
You heard Bob talking about the care that the admission staff does. The financial aid staff is a mirror image of that. That staff thinks through these things, works with the families. But I will tell you, families argue from self-interest all the time.
Quick one. I'm Mark from Dallas. Alternate ways to get into school. So you didn't get in as a freshman.
Yeah.
Addressing,
Yeah.
one student kept every year applying, finally she got in and graduated in 3.
Yeah. So transfers, about 150 students successfully transfer in either the fall or in the spring semester, and nearly all of them are in the fall semester. Most of them transfer after one full year at another university. Average GPA of transfers at their college where they've transferred in successfully is probably around a 3.7. Now, some kids above that don't get in, some kids below that do. Depends on the courses they took and the quality of college that they went to. About 100 of the 150 were kids that got turned down, broke their heart, and yet they dusted themselves off talk to us, and we give hope and we talk to them unless we think there's no chance. And what I tell a lot of these kids this time of the year is, you know what? It's just going to be a little less convenient for you, but you can graduate with this class that you applied to. You're just going to have to go suck it up, go to another place for. I sound like a football coach a lot with these kids. And get it done and come back, and we'd love to see you again, because it's not that you can't do the work here, it's just that it was a competitive situation.
And one thing would be helpful for clubs for us, we're trying to do a lot of PR. If you would give us a press release or something that we could easily just push out to our normal channels saying, University of Notre Dame accepted 13 students from the Dallas area.
Sure.
And whatever statistics rolled out.
Yeah. Yeah, by club area. Yeah. That's a good idea. Could you write that down? Could you write it down? I'm sorry, last one? Yeah, it's right now it's around, yeah, I mean, it's now becoming kind of a moot point at Notre Dame. I guess for those of us when we were here it wasn't, but it's been pretty close to 50-50 for a couple years now. Because of engineering nationally, 85% of all engineering students are male. Engineering here is a good-sized school, and we're 30% female here in engineering, so we're more than double the national average. But as a result of that, it's around 53-47, 53% male, 47% female. But yeah, we can do that. We usually do it in our annual report, but it just has become less of a distinguishing statistic. Okay. Yeah. Nope. Only alumni children. If you add in siblings, there's another 17% of the applicant, it's 9%. I'm sorry, it's 17% are siblings, but some of those are alumni children. But you can load another 9% on, so 24% are alumni children and another 9 have a sibling. So 33%, it's either mom and dad went here or a sibling went here. If we added aunts and uncles, knowing how Catholic most of us are, there would be no room for anybody else. And this is a good thing to bring up. Sibling families oftentimes say, I'm shocked that we don't have the same status as alumni. You said we were part of your family, you didn't mean it. And we said, yes, we did. Your first child got in, that's the blessing. It is not fair that all of your children get in, because there are other parents that want to start their Notre Dame tradition. So alumni children are different than sibling children. We welcome sibling children, but they do not get special interest. And that may sound a little harsh, but you got to draw the line somewhere so that the kid without any hood has a fighting chance. So, great. Thanks. If you have any other questions, feel free to come up.